Why you should always be a team captain. I'm Tony. Welcome back to Streetball Strategies.
It's my time and I know it's levels to be a boss. No matter how much it costs, I'm ready to spend it all. I'm really gonna jump it off. If anything, I've evolved. As long as money involved, then I'm already in course, already asking for more.
So I don't know how it works in other parts of the country, but when I was coming up as a basketball player in my area, when you'd come out to the park, one of the ways you would try to decide who's going to be on what team is you would have a team captain for each team to decide who gets which players. Today we're going to talk about why you should always try to be one of those team captains. Now, if you're a super beginner or younger player who doesn't have much experience yet, then maybe being a team captain isn't really a good fit for you at this point. But even so, sooner than later, you want to try to start thinking about becoming a team captain more and more often. So let's talk about why you should be a team captain and how you should go about doing it. The first reason I encourage you to try to always be a team captain is for the influence. I'm assuming that still today, like back when I was a player, team captaincy means you kind of have a certain amount of influence, a certain amount of authority over your teammates. It's not a dictatorship or anything like that. It's just sort of kind of implied that the players that want to be team captains, that like try to be the team captain, those players are doing so because they want to have a little bit of authority, a little bit of influence over their teammates. They want to, choose who's on their team and then choose a strategy for that team because they think it's going to be optimal. And players that choose not to be a team captain, that are just fine with being on whatever team, they do so with the kind of understanding that if I play for this team captain, I kind of have to, I'm supposed to adhere to whatever strategy they may or may not lay down for this team. So it's not like a super stringent thing. It's just kind of like, kind of understood. It's kind of like an unwritten rule. If you're a team captain, you have a little bit of influence, a little bit of authority. The reason you should want this is not for any kind of arrogant or malicious reasons. It's simply because it's going to help you become a leader. And I'm assuming if you're watching this channel, then you're on kind of a next level of basketball in that we take the game more seriously than the average player. And we do that by thinking about the game in different, more evolved ways than the average player does. And inherently that means we're usually more of a serious player than the average player you would find out here at the park. Usually the average player out here is a casual player and they're playing sort of just to have fun and just for the enjoyment of the game. But players like you and me, we are kind of on a serious mission to become the best basketball players we can be. And part of that is trying to be the most well-rounded player we can be. So part of that means leadership. One of the staples of a great leader is being able to pick the right players and make those players be better through our leadership. Finding and understanding their strengths and their weaknesses and then using those things to bring out the best in those players. The sooner you can do that, the better you can do it, the more comprehensive of a player you're going to be. The better of a leader you are and the better understanding you have of what it takes to be a leader, what it takes to be a good leader is going to help you become a more well-rounded player. And even if you're younger and newer, taking on that sort of leadership role will help you understand how the older, more experienced players that you're around, what is their responsibilities to try to help you become a better player, what kind of responsibilities they have, what kind of pressure they're under to help you become better. Essentially, being a leader, even as a younger, newer beginner player, it just gives you a better comprehension of the game as a whole. The better understanding you have of the game, the more comprehensive it is, even as a younger player, right, the better you're going to be able to evolve as a player. Not only the better you're going to be able to become, but the faster, because the more understanding you have, the better you're able to comprehend what's going on out here, the faster you're going to be able to evolve as a player. And speaking to the comprehension of the game, being a leader, taking on that captaincy role, is going to help you teach the players around you, the players that you pick to be on your team, to execute the strategy that you think is optimal for success. This can be very important because in my experience, one of the best ways to learn something, especially to master something, is by teaching it to other people. So by figuring out what players you want to have on your team, and why they should be on your team, and then telling them, here's the strategy I think we should run because it's going to help us be successful, and then helping them to understand how and why to do that is only going to serve to help you grow as a player. The more you teach them, the more you're going to learn yourself. Because in order to teach them, you have to have a certain level of understanding of the strategy you're trying to run in the first place. And then they're gonna theoretically have questions about how and why to run that offense or defense or that strategy, and then you'll have to break it down and explain it to them. And the more you do that, like over and over again, just the better understanding you're gonna have of the game. So you come out here and you don't really get to see any of the players really play, right? So you don't really know anybody's game. You're just sort of guessing. You're sort of like you're profiling the players. Like this guy is tall, this guy is skinny, this guy is bigger. Like, okay, you're just guessing at how these players might serve your team. They don't know you, you don't know them, but you choose them to be on your team, right? Ideally, you would then say, okay, here's why I chose you guys to be on my team. And here, therefore, is why we're going to run a certain kind of strategy. Now, obviously, that's not like a real world kind of scenario, right? Usually you show up to the court, you shoot for captains choose the teams, and then you're off playing, and you don't really get to have that conversation. But ideally, right, in an ideal scenario, you would be able to go through all of that with your teammates. If you can't, like if you don't have that opportunity to sort of talk to them, discuss with them, like, here's why this team exists in this, a configuration for these reasons, and here's how we're going to try to run our strategy, right? At least you want to communicate, like, okay, here's basically what I'm trying to do. Like, here's basically what my goals are for running a certain kind of strategy. It would be great if you have like a few seconds before the game starts to sort of go over that with them, but again, a lot of times that doesn't happen. The game just sort of starts immediately. That's okay. But once gameplay starts, now you want to try to like start, showing them on the fly. You're telling them, okay, come here, do this. We're doing this for this reason. Like, the better you can figure out how to communicate that, like within the confines of gameplay, the better. At first, if you don't have any experience doing that, you're not really going to understand. Like, I don't know how to convey this message, during gameplay, but that's one of those things where that comes with the experience, right? The main thing is somehow, some way, you want to figure out how to get that message across to them. Like, here's the kind of strategy we're trying to implement for this game. Now, if during the game, the communication, just for whatever reason, isn't really getting across, it really doesn't work the way you would hope and envisioned it to, then after the game, when you probably have lost because you didn't communicate that great as a team, and thus your strategy never really came together the way you wanted it to, after the game, then hopefully you can sort of take them aside and go, hey, this is what I was trying to do. Here's why I was trying to do that. So that hopefully, like, if you're about to run the game back with the same teams, now your team understands, okay, this is what we're trying to do. This is how we're trying to do it. This is why. And then hopefully in that next game, as you run it back, your team is more successful than it was last time. But at the very least, as a team captain, it's your responsibility to, number one, have some kind of actual, formable, understandable strategy, and then figure out how to get your team to execute it, on a level in which they understand and you can communicate it to them so that they can run the strategy in a way in which you intend them to do. That's why you should always try to be a team captain. Now, for those of you who are thinking, leading in that kind of a way is not really your personality, it's not really your game. Like, you do want to be a leader, like you do want to have that kind of reputation out here. You just don't want to do it in that kind of like coaching capacity where you feel and behave like a coach. That's perfectly fine. What's most important is, as a general leader, what you want to do is establish, here's the strategy I'm trying to run, here's how and why we're going to do it. As long as you get that message across, then however you go about doing that is perfectly fine. Whether it be coaching in the more traditional way like I was explaining, or if it's by you sort of going out and leading by example, that's perfectly fine. The main thing is you want them to understand what your strategy is and how you plan to execute it. You don't have to actively coach them. You just have to, at the very least, show them and do whatever it takes for them to understand and follow your lead. So I want to thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, if you found it helpful, if you think it's going to help you be a better leader out here on the court, then please subscribe to the channel. And comment below and let me know what you think about being a team captain. Is it something that you actively try to do every game, where you try to lead the team by being a team captain every game? Or are you more of a teammate who maybe starts to lead organically through, as the game progresses? But before you comment, make sure you hit that thanks button down below, because when you hit that thanks button, not only does it make all of your comments stand out from every other comment, but it also directly supports the channel. So for anyone that does hit that thanks button, know I genuinely appreciate it. As always, like, share, comment like I said. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified whenever any video goes live on this channel. And until then, I'll see you guys next week.
Whole team full of bosses, you might have to forfeit. You could never force me, you should get it sorted. I am so important, you need reinforcement. You outline and talk, you need an endorsement.